The hour of convening having arrived, all members of the House will please come to the floor and take seats. All members will come to the floor. The clerk will ring the bell. All members will come to the floor of the House and take seats. We're about to have morning roll call. I'm going to ask the clerk to ring the bell one more time. Time for morning roll call. All members present will please vote green to signify their presence in the chamber, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Representative Pack, would you please vote Chairman Hill, who is at the podium with the chaplain? Thank you. Have all members now voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. Doorkeepers will please close the doors and keep them closed. We will have scripture reading and prayer by the chaplain, after which we will pledge allegiance to the flag of our country. Our chaplain this morning will be introduced by the gentleman from the 22nd House District, Chairman Calvin Hill. Chairman Hill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And today I have the great honor of presenting our pastor of the day and my personal pastor, the Reverend Jim McRae. But before I do that, and of course it's most important that I introduce you to the motivation behind the man, and that's his lovely wife, Lisa. Lisa, if you will stand for a moment, please. Now, Reverend Jim has been serving in the North Georgia Conference of the United Methodist Church for about 13 years now. He grew up here in Atlanta in Sandy Springs and attended Pace Academy High and graduated from UGA, where there he earned his BA in English. But then he started a contracting company and enjoyed the private sector for many years. But God kept calling to him, and he finally yielded to the calling to the ministry in his late 20s, as it was undeniable where he needed to go. And he heeded that call by continuing his education at Emory University at the Candler School of Theology, where he earned his Master's of Divinity. He has since enjoyed growth in the ministry in all the churches he served, and Canton First was not at all an exception. Since his coming to our church about a little over a year and a half ago, our church has more than doubled in its membership and attendance. Rev Jim, as he's so often called, loves fishing, golf, fast and loud anything, especially cars, and the art of silver making. But most of all, he loves to spend his time with his better half, Lisa. She's the only one, I think, that can keep him grounded and on his toes. They've been married for 11 years now. Cheryl and I, along with the people in Canton, have been blessed to have Rev Jim as our pastor, and we appreciate this opportunity to share him with you.
Calvin, thank you. Mr. Speaker, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for letting me be here today. I actually was shocked that I got asked to come back, considering we collected an offering the last time I was here, and it wasn't very much. We won't do it again. I do consider it an honor to be here. When I speak in front of people, I try to identify with people and exactly what the connection with myself and the people I'm speaking with. And there is a connection between us. We're both public servants. We are elected in a certain way by the people around us to represent. I represent people to God, and I go to God on their behalf. And it is a true honor, as it is with you, an honor to be a part of what you're doing for the state of Georgia. And I think about those things, and I think about how all the privileges and the joys and what we get from that, every single one of us. And it's in that same moment I think about all the things that we don't like about it. I mean, you are scrutinized, I am scrutinized, your lives are held under microscopes, mine are too. Every word you say could be printed for people to read. You have people scrutinizing that might even be sitting next to you, and you might not even know it. Then you might know it, and they might not know you know it. I mean, that's the way of life, and that's the life that we live in. And every time, I guarantee you, what I do for a living and the vocation that I have, there is no higher privilege. The same thing with you. But there's always somebody trying to undermine what we're trying to do every single day that we're alive. And I'm telling you, that can absolutely, I mean, for me, I'm in a growing church. I've got everything going. We're rocking it up in North Georgia. But you know something? It can be one person that can derail my day. Absolutely one thing can derail my day. And the way I handle that is this, and I started doing this, but you get up in the morning, you go to the mirror, you look at yourself, and you get ready. But every time now what I do is I do say three things to myself, and this is it. That I'm a child of God and I'm loved by God. That I have a divine purpose, and that I'm called to do something great in this world. Every single day, I look in the mirror, I say that. And all of a sudden, something starts to change in me. I mean, when I look in the mirror and I say, you know, I'm a child of God and I'm loved by God, that means something to me, and it should mean something to you. It means that although I've made a ton of mistakes in my past, although my past is not holy and righteous like some people might like to make you believe, mine is not. And I look in that mirror and I hear Satan and others say, you know what, you don't have the best past. You've done things that are questionable. You know, you are not the person. And you know, every time I look in the mirror, I hear God said, you know what, but you're mine. For God so loved the world that He gave His only Son. Forgiven. And that comes over me, and when I realize that I'm not living in my past. Yes, you've made mistakes in your past. Yes, you look in the mirror every single day, just like me. I look in there and I get ready. I got ready today. I tried to make myself look the best I possibly could. You do that, but there's some of us that look in that mirror and see, okay, look, I look good. You know, I'm okay with myself on the inside. I mean, you know, I've lived a life that I'm proud of. Yeah, I've made it. Then there are people, the rest of us, that look in that mirror and they see the exterior, they see the things that they've done, and they see how they're making the world, they're making themselves up so the world can see them in a certain way. But when they look in the mirror, they see something deep down inside and they're not proud of it. They're just not proud of it. And they have to continue to try to make themselves look better. They continue to live in the now, and they never hear these words that God loves them. And then we got people making us believe that God doesn't love us, that we're unlovable, and all these other things. When we come to work and people trying to deal with us, the first thing I want you to hear when you wake up, when you look in that mirror, is this: that God loves you. But it doesn't stop there, because it goes to the next thing when I hear those words that I have a divine purpose. And this is important for us all to hear as we serve people. And I want you to hear what Scripture says. He says in John 15, "You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, and that fruit abide." You see, there are plenty of people that know they're loved by God, but they don't realize they have a divine purpose. And we can get in our seats, we can get in our places of power. I'm in one, you're in one, and we substitute divine purpose for just purpose. And all of a sudden, our purpose becomes our purpose and what we're called to do and what we think we're called to do. There's a difference between the world purpose that we live in versus the divine purpose that you're called to. A divine purpose says, you know what, although there are people whispering in my ear, there are people wanting me to do it, I have the same politics in church, folks. Amen? Amen. People constantly whispering in my ear, you need to do this, you need to do that. This is the way, it constantly. And I have a choice every day. I say, you know what, I can live out my purpose, or I can live out my what? My divine purpose. And that's a purpose that says, you know what, I'm not going to listen to what human beings are going to say about me or about the direction of my life. I'm going to get that only from one thing and one thing only, and that is my Lord. That is my Lord. And then that's where the road separates for people. That's where you see the Abrahams and the Josephs and the Moseses, and that's where you see the fork with your own people that you know. There's certain people that want to follow the divine purpose in their life versus the purpose in their life. And there is a big difference, friends. Every day I wake up, I say, I'm a child of God, loved by God. That I have more than just a purpose, but a divine purpose. And that I am lastly called to do something great in this world. And so are you. Greatness is defined, interestingly enough, by human beings. Some think that greatness is about getting their name put on a building, or their name put in the paper, or whatever, accolades. And that's not the greatness that I'm called to, and that's not the greatness you're called to. That's fun for a while, but all that stuff fades. And by the way, they're not going to remember you by that greatness. The greatness that we're called to is the kind of greatness that says, you know what, I'm going to get up out of my place of privilege and give it to somebody else. I'm going to turn the other cheek when someone slaps the other cheek. I'm going to give my heart and my spirit and my soul to those that are the least in the kingdom. And especially when my enemy attacks me, I'm going to love that is greatness, friends. That is redefining greatness for everything that happens in this room, not only when it happens in this room, but when it happens into the other rooms, and when it goes back into your homes, goes back into your communities, goes back into your church. Real greatness is defined by our God. Now, I guarantee you this. If I asked everybody to raise their hands and close their eyes, and I asked this question, who in here is hurting? If I asked everybody to open their heart up to the pain that's in them that they deal with, they look in the mirror every single day and they deal with every single day. Because in this room, there's a lot of pain, guaranteed. Except they've just done a good job of getting up and looking the part and coming to this place and putting on all that different stuff. You see, real greatness is being able to recognize when people are in what? Pain. Recognizing when your colleagues are hurting, no matter if they're on the opposite sides of the aisle or on the opposite sides of your thoughts or ideas. Recognizing whether or not people are breaking apart inside. And greatness comes, and let me tell you, there's no greater thing on the planet than to hear these words. You're the reason I don't hurt any longer. Pastor, thank you. You're the reason that now my life is different. You're the reason that I was in the valley and now you showed me how to climb to the mountain. You're the reason. And that's greatness. That's a life that becomes great. You'll look in the mirror tomorrow, amen? Maybe I ask this, what will you see? I'm here to bring you good news, I hope. And I hope you've already felt it, that you're a child of God, loved. That you are called not just to a purpose, but to a divine purpose, to do something great in this world. I'll see you on the road. Let's bow our heads in prayer. Gracious and merciful Father, today I ask that you just hear our prayers. And that, gracious God, you allow these men and women to hear you. And maybe most of all, for the first time, to hear thank you. That, Father, as we all look in that mirror, that we not for 1 second more be defined by what the world says, but by what you say. So, Father, let your Spirit move through this hall today. And gracious God, may your will be done. And we ask this in Christ's holy name, and we say together, amen. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Speaker, God bless you. Appreciate you. Thank you for having us.
Doorkeepers will unlock the doors. Chair recognizes Chairman Sims, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Information and Audits has read the proceedings of the previous legislative day and found them to be correct.
Chairman Sims, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits, reports that the journal of the previous legislative day has been read and found to be correct. Is there any objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. The clerk will read the resolution establishing the order of business for the day.
Mr. O'Neill, the 146 moves the following be established to order business during the first part of the period unanimous consents. Introduction of bills and resolutions, first reading of bills and resolutions, second reading of bills and resolutions, reports of standing committees, third reading and passage, uncontested local bills, morning orders, election of state auditor, rules, calendar, privilege resolutions through the order of business established for this legislative day. We got a community report because we got the local calendar. Okay, watch this.
Try not to drop it from below.
No, that's my.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the resolution establishing the order of business for the day? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. First reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 242 by Representative Willard of the 51st. The bill being entitled Act Amendment Title 15, relating to courts, substantially revised, supersedes forfeiture provisions.
Judiciary.
House Bill 243 by Representative Glant of the 75th. The bill being entitled Act relating to the Employees Retirement System of Georgia.
Retirement.
House Bill 244 by Representative Nix, 69th. The bill being entitled Act Amendment Title 20, relating to elementary and secondary education.
Education.
House Bill 245 by Representative Benton, 31st. The bill being entitled Act relating to salary, schedules, certificate.
Education.
House Bill 246 by Representative Golick, 40th. The bill being entitled Act Amendment Title 10, General Provisions, World Congress Center.
Insurance.
House Bill 247 by Representative Battles, 15th. Bill being entitled Act New Charter, City of Emerson.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 248 by Representative Neal, II. Bill being entitled Act Amendment Title 16, Carrying Possession of Firearms.
Public safety and homeland security.
House Bill 249 by Representative Neal, II. Bill being entitled Act relating to definition athletic association.
Education.
House Bill 250 by Representative Rice, 95th. Bill being entitled Act Amendment Title 48, Excise Tax.
Ways and means.
House Bill 251 by Representative Powell, 32nd. Bill being entitled Act Amendment Title 16 relating to sale, distribution.
Juvenile justice.
House Bill 252 by Representative Quick, 117th. Bill to be entitled Act Athens, Clark County.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 253 by Representative Quick, 117th. Bill to be entitled Act Future Elections, Probate Judge, Athens, Clark County, Part.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 254 by Representative Williamson, 115th. Bill to be entitled Act Amendment Title 40, Uniform Rules of the Road.
Insurance.
House Bill 255 by Representative Rogers, the 10th. Bill to be entitled Act relating to certification, Operation Motor Carrier.
Public safety and homeland security.
House Bill 256 by Representative Harbin, 122nd. Bill to be entitled Act Amendment Title 16, Sale, Distribution of Cigarettes.
Juvenile justice.
House Bill 257 by Representative Marine of the 49th. Bill to be entitled Act Amendment Title 48, Income Tax.
Ways and means.
House Bill 258 by Representative Marine of the 49th. Bill to be entitled Act Amendment Title 48 relating to income taxes.
Ways and means.
House Bill 259 by Representative Martin, 49th. Bill to be entitled Act Amendment Title 48, Sales and Use Tax.
Ways and means.
House Bill 260 by Representative Martin, the 49th. Bill to be entitled Act Amendment Title 48, Sales and Use Tax.
Ways and means.
House Bill 261 by Representative Martin, the 49th. Bill to be entitled Act Amendment Title 48, Franchise Taxes.
Ways and means.
House Bill 262 by Representative Martin, the 49th. Bill to be entitled Act Amendment Title 36, Regulation of Cable Television System.
Energy, utilities, and telecommunications.
House Bill 263 by Representative Martin, the 49th. Bill to be entitled Act Amendment Title 20, School Personnel Post-Employment Health Funds.
Retirement.
House Bill 264 by Representative Jacobs, the 8th. Bill to be entitled Act Amendment Act known as the Metropolitan Atlanta Rapid Transit Authority Act.
Governmental affairs.
House Bill 265 by Representative Jacobs, the 80th. Bill to be entitled Act Amendment Title 32, Mass Transportation.
Governmental affairs.
House Bill 266 by Representative Peake, the 141st. Bill to be entitled Act Amendment Title 48, Revenue and Taxation.
Ways and means.
House Bill 267 by Representative Chapman, the 167th. Bill to be entitled Act relating to procedure changing classification.
Energy, utilities, and telecommunications.
House Resolution 218 by Representative Sims, the 123rd. Resolution requesting local school superintendents so that a constitution.
Education.
House Resolution 228 by Representative Waits, the 60th. Resolution requesting Congress pass legislation restoring certain cuts.
Health and Human Services.
Through the first readers.
Second reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
HB 224 by Representative Sims of the 169th, the bill to reestablish the Board of Commissioners, Coffee County. HB 225 by Representative Kirby of the 114th, the bill relating to procedure relative to the adoption, amendment, modification, Agency Rules and Regulations, HB 226 by Representative Nix of the 69th. A bill relating to solid waste management, HB 227 by Representative Stevens of the 164th. A bill relating to issuance, expiration, and renewal of driver's licenses. HB 228 by Representative Hamilton of the 24th. A bill relating to conduct of public officials and lobbyist disclosure. HB 229 by Representative Teasley of the 37th. A bill relating to the authorization and general requirements for transaction of insurance. HB 230 by Representative Powell of the 171st. A bill relating to immunity and antitrust liability. HB 231 by Representative Neal of the 2nd, a bill relating to imposition rate and computation of income taxes and exemptions. HB 232 by Representative Battles of the 15th, a bill relating to employee other contributions of the Region's retirement plan. HB 233 by Representative Dukes of the 154th, bill to authorize the governing authority of the City of Albany to levy an excise tax. HB 234 by Representative Smith of the 70th, a bill relating to contracts. HB 235, Representative Earhart of the 36th, a bill relating to optometrists. HB 236 by Representative Quick of the 117th, a bill relating to enforcement of duty of support. HB 237 by Representative Fry of the 118th, a bill relating to general provisions applicable to local governments. HB 238, Representative Maxwell of the 17th, a bill relating to retirement benefits payable under the public school employee retirement system. HB 239 by Representative Brockway of the 102nd, bill relating to imposition rate and computation of income taxes and exemptions. HB 240, Representative Carson of the 46th, a bill relating to medical assistance. HB 241 by Representative Gardner of the 57th, a bill to amend an act to continue the existence of the Atlanta Independent School System. HR 204 by Representative Green of the 151st, a resolution encouraging the United States Congress as well as the House and Senate Armed Services Committees to avoid sequestration. HR 205 by Representative Neal of the 2nd, a resolution authorizing the conveyance of certain state-owned real property. HR 217 by Representative Powell of the 171st, a resolution honoring the life of Special Agent Weldon Harrell, dedicating a road in his memory. Senate Bill 14 by Senator Unterman of the 45th, a bill relating to indigent and elderly patients, through second readers.
Reports of standing committees. The clerk will read.
Representative Carter, the 175th, Chairman, Committee on Governmental Affairs, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, Committee on Governmental Affairs, had consideration of the following bill. The House struck me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendation. House Bill 87, be passed by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Carter, Chair. Representative Sims, 169th, Chairman, Committee on Intergovernmental Coordination, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, Committee on Intergovernmental Coordination, had consideration of the following bills. The House struck me to report the same back to the House following recommendations. House Bill 174, 201, 204, 206, 220, 223 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Sims, Chair. Representative Willard of the 51st, Chairman, Committee on Judiciary, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, Committee on Judiciary had consideration of the following bills. The House struck me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendation. House Resolution 4 do pass. House Bill 194, House Bill 196 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Willard, Chairman. Representative Roberts, 155th, Chairman, Committee on Transportation, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, Committee on Transportation has had under consideration following bill. The House struck me to report the same back to the House following recommendation. House Bill 202 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Roberts, Chairman, through the committee reports.
We have a local calendar today. Third reading and passage of uncontested local bills. House will come to order. We're about to take up the local calendar. If there's no objection, we will vote on the local calendar as a whole with a recorded vote. Hearing none, it is so ordered. The clerk will read the local calendar.
House Bill 174, Representative Powell, 32nd, Franklin County. House Bill 201, Representative Taylor, 173rd, Grady County. House Bill 204, Representative Powell, 171st, Mitchell County. House Bill 206, Representative Benton, 31st, Jackson County. House Bill 220, Representative Hardin, 148th, Crisp County. House Bill 223, Representative Gasway, 28th, Banks County. These following local bills on the local calendar have been before the House Committee on Intergovernmental Coordination. Committee recommends the bills do pass. They're being read today for the third time. Southwest.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered on the local calendar? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bills? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the bills on the local calendar now pass? All those in favor of passage of the bills will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of the bills on the local calendar. The ayes are 154, the nays are 0. These bills, having received the requisite constitutional majority, are therefore passed. The chair, as it does when former members come to visit us, always pays recognition. I hope you'll join me in welcoming a former member to the floor of the House, former Chairman Tim Bearden. Former Chairman Bearden. The chair had to look to see if we had a gun bill on the rules calendar today when I saw Chairman Bearden, but we don't. We're about to go on to morning orders. If you have signed up for a morning order, Chair would ask you to make your way to the front of the chamber. We have a number of people who have signed up, and given that we're on a little bit of a time schedule because of the confirmation of the state auditor, I'm going to ask those who have signed up for a morning order to limit their comments to 1 minute. 1 minute. Chair recognizes Representative Beasley Teague for a morning order. House will be in order.
Good morning, colleagues. Today is a day that I normally would roll over and call my mother and say, Mama, what are we going to do for Grandma today? Today, my grandmother would have been 99 years old. My mother passed last year, so I couldn't do that. So I'm going to talk to y'all about it. So my question then would be, well, my 95-year-old godmother said, just go to the well and talk to your colleagues about her. Well, she was a strong advocate for women and women's rights. She was the Star Wars person in my life, in my generation when I was coming up. So today, I guess this is what I'm going to do to honor her, and I appreciate each and every one of you for sitting there, being patient, and dealing with me with this. Be blessed, and thank you.
Chair recognizes for a morning order the minority leader of the House, Representative Abrams, Representative Mayo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have no wish to play the pontificating fool, pretending that I've suddenly come up with the answers to all life's questions. Quite the contrary. I began this book as an exploration, an exercise in self-questioning. In other words, I wanted to find out, as I looked back at a long and complicated life with many twists and turns, how well I've done at measuring up to the values I've set for myself. This is a book given to me by my dad. It's an autobiography about a man, Sidney Poitier. It's The Measure of a Man. It's a spiritual autobiography, and this moment in Black history is to recognize Sidney Poitier, the first African-American to win an Academy Award for Best Actor at the age of 37 in 1963. And just briefly, I know I have 1 minute, but I'm going to share just a small bit of this luminous memoir. A true American icon looks back on his celebrated life and career. His body of work is arguably the most morally significant in cinematic history, and the power and influence of that work are indicative of the character of the man behind the many storied roles. Sidney Poitier here explores these elements of character and personal values to take his own measure as a man, as a husband and father, and as an actor.
Chair recognizes for a morning order Representative Gardner. Representative Gardner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I have a resolution honoring Emory McClinton. Some of you know Emory McClinton, who was the husband of long-term House member Joanne McClinton and has served for 20 years as on the board of the Georgia Department of Transportation, and I thought some of you might like to sign this resolution before I drop it, so I'll leave it up here. Thank you very much.
Chair recognizes Chairman Smyrie for a morning order. Chairman Smyrie.
Mr. Speaker and members of the House, I just wanted to come and say a word about Jack Carnell, who passed away recently, and I served with Jack, and I just wanted to come and give respect to he and Nan and the family. I know yesterday members of the Augusta delegation and the Speaker mentioned Jack, and I met Jack in 1974. And he was the majority whip, and then he became Speaker Pro Tem and served there for 26 years. And really got to know Jack when Joe Frank Harris, who became governor, was the appropriations chairman, and Speaker was kind enough to appoint me to the appropriation in 1984. And Jack was a great help to me there. He was a good businessman, but he was most known for his community service, his love of Augusta and Richmond County, his love for this great state. He was an astute businessman, but he was most known for his service here in the Georgia General Assembly. And when he was Speaker Pro Tem, he was kind of a balance to Tom Murphy at times, and he would assist us in trying to persuade the Speaker to do things from time to time, and Jack was that balance. He was a good man. I remember we used to try to get Jack to ride to the state capitol. He would walk from the landmark over here and walk back, which is a good little walk. And but I just wanted to come. I have fond memories, and I know I have but a minute, but I have fond memories of Jack Carnell, and but he was a guy that was revered and loved in this house. And on our tombstones, there are two dates: the day that you're born and the day that you pass. We celebrate your birthday and we mourn your death. But the only thing that matters in life is what you do with your dash, the time that you were here. And Jack Carnell's dash will say that he was a good man, that he loved his state, that he loved his country, and that he loved the people that he represented. And I'm looking forward to seeing Nan and the family tomorrow as we lay to rest a great Georgian, Jack Carnell. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman Smyrie. Chair recognizes for a morning order Chairman Cooper. For a morning order, Chairman Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to bring your attention to a flyer that I put out on your desk. And for once, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution has got something right. 2 years ago,
I thought they did every day.
We have a difference in varying opinion on that, Mr. Speaker. Going to get me tickled. Anyway, 2 years ago in this chamber, we made a new department, the Department of Public Health. It was not without great discussion. Some people thought we were expanding government, even though they were getting no more money than what they already had. But in 2 years' time, our ranking has gone from being 43rd among the states in our public health assessment to being number 36, and that's in 2 years' time. Pretty soon we will be wired where within a very short amount of mileage, a doctor can take a patient and talk to a specialist with video medicine. We are working on programs with the Atlanta Falcons and Children's Healthcare to make our children across the state healthier. And all of this is because this body and the body across the hall and under Governor Deal's leadership saw fit to really put an emphasis on public health for our state. So I want to thank you for that vote. And when sometimes you think you are not doing anything that's making a difference in the lives of Georgians, I want you to think about our new public health department and the strides that it is making under the leadership of Dr. Brenda Fitzgerald. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Allison to introduce the Doctor of the Day. Representative Allison.
Good morning. Colleagues, it is truly my pleasure to introduce a doctor from my district as this week's Doctor of the Day. It's ironic that in a day that I'm feeling rather poorly and sound terrible that I get to introduce the Doctor of the Day. Dr. Stephen Gerard was born and raised in Northeast Oklahoma. He was then appointed to the United States Military Academy at West Point and graduated in 1982. After serving in various command and staff positions for 14 years, he received a health professional scholarship from the Army and graduated from the James Quillen College of Medicine at East Tennessee State University. Following general surgery residency at Fort Gordon, Dr. Gerard served as an Army surgeon at Fort Stewart, Georgia, to include 2 combat tours with the forward surgical team in Afghanistan. Dr. Gerard retired from the Army in 2010 and accepted a position as general surgeon at Mountain Lakes Medical Center in Rabun County. He has since taken on additional duties as the emergency room physician, inpatient rehab medical director, and also serves as chief medical officer. Dr. Gerard has been a good friend to me and my wife since meeting him about 3 years ago, and it's my honor to introduce our doctor today, Dr. Stephen Gerard.
Thank you all, and I want to say that it is an honor and a pleasure, and it's very humbling for me to be here in the People's House. And since the people cannot be here today, I'm very happy to be able to speak to the people's representatives. When I was active duty, and when people find out that I'm a retired officer, many times they say, "Thank you for your service." And they really mean it, and I appreciate it, and I always reply, "Thank you for your support." Well, I know you all usually hear a lot of things, a lot of complaints, a lot of problems. This is bad, this is not good, fix this, help me with this. But this morning I want to say to each and every one of you, as one of your citizens, thank you for your service. And a friend of mine once said when I was in Afghanistan, he wrote me from Philadelphia and said, "You know, some people come to the end of their days and they think back and wonder, did I make a difference?" And I want to say thank you all. You're making a difference, and we need to work together for health care. I pledge to you that all your doctors in your districts will help you with that. If you ever need them, just call on them and we'll be glad to. But to all of our representatives of this great state of Georgia, Thank you for your service.
Thank you. And I lift it up.
The next order of business today is the nomination and election of the state auditor. The House will be in order. Pursuant to House Resolution 203, which was adopted Wednesday, the time for the nomination and election of the state auditor having arrived, the floor is now open for nominations. The chair recognizes the chair of the House Appropriations Committee, Chairman England.
Mr. Speaker, members of the House, it gives me great pleasure this morning to place the name of Greg S. Griffin in nomination for the position of State Auditor. Irregardless of him being an Auburn University graduate, we still think he's a pretty good guy.
No one's perfect. Chairman England has nominated Greg S. Griffin for the position of State Auditor. The chair recognizes the distinguished minority leader of the House, Leader Abrams, for the purpose of a second.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the nomination of Greg Griffin to serve as the State Auditor.
The name of Greg S. Griffin has been submitted for nomination by Chairman England and has been seconded by the minority leader. For what purpose does the majority leader wish to be recognized?
Mr. Speaker, I wish to be recognized to move that the nominations now be closed.
The majority leader has moved that nominations for the position of State Auditor be closed. Is there any objection to the motion of the majority leader? The chair hears none. The name of Greg S. Griffin having been duly submitted, he having been nominated, the question before this body is on the nomination of State Auditor. All those voting for the Honorable Greg S. Griffin for State Auditor will vote green or yes. Those opposed will vote red or no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the election of the state auditor, the ayes are 162. The nays are 0. The Honorable Greg S. Griffin, having received a majority of the votes of the membership of the House for state auditor, the name of the Honorable Greg S. Griffin is hereby ordered transmitted to the Senate immediately for confirmation. I didn't realize he was with us. The state auditor is with us this morning, Greg S. Griffin. Mr. Griffin, let us stand and recognize you. Congratulations. I'm about to call the Lieutenant Governor and tell him that now the matter is in the hands of the Senate. Okay, we're about to go on to the rules calendar. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 3. House Bill 3.
House Bill 3 by Representative Willard of the 51st, a bill to be entitled Act Amendment Title 12, Title 24, the practice of professional forestry evidence, respectively, so as to conform provisions of the code due to the passage of 2011 House Bill 24 and House Bill 214. Change provisions relating to using a writing to refresh memory, reassign functions, former Division of Public Health, the Department of Community Health, and the new Department of Public Health related to disclosure of AIDS confidential information. This bill has been before the House Committee on Judiciary. The committee recommends the bill do pass. The bill is being read for its third time.
The chair recognizes the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Chairman Willard, to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To my colleagues, before you is a bill that is correcting three things that came through with a bill we had 2 years ago, the evidence code rewrite. And if you remember, that was a fairly extensive bill. We found three things we need to look at as far as correction. I want to go through a quick explanation. Section 1, we did something in the bill that needed to be done for a long time. We recognized how documents, legal documents from state, local governments, are to be introduced into a court record. And what we're doing here is just, we found one that we didn't catch. We're now correcting that dealt with the Department of Forestry. It just says they will keep their records in proceedings. The rest of it talk about how records are introduced is taken out because the evidence code covers it. Section 2 is a change of one word. If you look on line 30, we have changed the word the trial to testifying. The reason for that is this talks about when you have documents that are used to refresh the recollection of a witness by an attorney in preparation for that witness to testify, their client. They may use documents that come out of the attorney's file, which is called his privileged work product. And that is not something the other attorney has opportunity or right to receive those documents. So what we want to change there, recognize not just at time of trial, but any time that witness is testifying, whether it be in a hearing or deposition or otherwise. The third item is just correcting some words of a department that was not done, and there's been a change in the name of this department, and that is changing the Department of Community Health to the Department of Public Health as it deals with certain areas of HIV reporting. That, Mr. Speaker, is the summary of the bill, and I ask my colleagues' favorable support.
I have no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We do have a member, I think, that had signed up to speak on the bill. Representative Jones. Chair recognizes Representative Jones to speak on the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I am speaking to oppose this bill based on Section 2, and I'm going to give you a pretty brief explanation of why. It is technical, but it's an important thing, which is why we're all here. We all know that if you change a shall to a may in the law, it can make a huge difference down the line. If you all can follow me to Section 2, page 2 on line 30, which Chairman Willard pointed out, the change in the language is from the trial to testifying. Well, upon discussing this issue in the committee, it was determined, as explained by the chairman, that this is not only for testimony at trial, this is for any hearing. In any court proceeding, you have pre-trials, you have motions, you have all sorts of things in which people may come and testify. Now, I think in general, this law is a good law, except for looking at lines 26 and lines 24, in which the language "at trial" is still there. Well, that will cause a problem and confusion in the courts, because if you get a little snazzy lawyer like me up there during a pretrial motion, I'm going to argue, Judge, that this law does not apply because this is not at trial. We need to remove that portion and those words, "at trial," so that this can be presented in a way we can prohibit a lot of things that would cause appeals to appellate court, the Supreme Court, only for it to be kicked back down to us. Now, let me break it down really simply for you all. The first portion of this law is about a long-standing legal issue, and that's refreshing a recollection. So a client gets onto the stand. The client says, "I really don't remember the dates that you told me that I apparently met with that lobbyist. I'll bring it home to you guys." If you don't remember the dates, you can say, "Well, is there something that will refresh your recollection?" They say, "Yes. The notes that we took in our meeting together will refresh my recollection." And you're able to show it to the other side, take it to your client, they look at it, they remember, and then they testify about it. The other long-standing legal principle is attorney-client privilege. So the notes that you took with your client at the time are privileged. The other side does not get it as a part of discovery. So if you would imagine with me on the notes that you and your attorney took, where initially you wrote down the dates that you met with the lobbyist, but then on the bottom you had a little note that said, "By the way, please, if this doesn't go right, please make sure that my wife knows about my money in the Cayman Islands," you wouldn't want the other side to get that, correct? This law, the way that it is written, would make it very confusing on how that would apply if you were not at trial. So I think what we need to do is send it back to the committee to take out those 5 words, "at trial" in lines 24 and "at the trial" on lines 26. They are not necessary in order to make sure that what we want to happen happens, which is to prevent the other side from seeing things that are privileged that we don't want them to see. So I will recommend to this body that we do vote no on this, only for the purpose of sending it back. If we are going to correct it, let's make it sure that it is completely correct. And I feel as a freshman standing up here and opposing something that was corrected by the intelligent Professor Millich, who has been teaching law since I was literally 3 years old, that is a little bold. However, I think that is important, knowing that I'm in courtrooms every day, that we need to make sure that we don't spend our time on something that we can fix in the very early. Thank you, and I will yield the well.
Lady has yielded the well. No one else has signed up to speak. The chairman of the committee is entitled to the final word. The chair recognizes Chairman Willard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I'm sorry this is becoming such a debatable issue. It's not something that's that misunderstood. As she mentioned, my colleague mentioned, we had a hearing on this. She raised a question. We wanted to resolve the issue. Professor Millich, who those of you who were here 2 years ago recall, he was the one who aided us substantially with the preparation of the evidence bill. The issue about this, I'm going to break it down so we all understand. If you start reading section B on line 24, it talks about a witness testifying and refreshing their memory at trial. And it says, "and the court in its discretion determines it necessary in the interest of justice," etc. The reason it's referenced at trial there is because that's the only time you're going to have, most likely, the judge present as a means of determining whether or not opposing counsel will have the right and opportunity to receive those documents to review. That's why it's different from what we have under the second section, because the witness may be refreshing their recollection from other documents, not those that came from the file of the attorney. And what the law recognizes is you do have a difference when you speak of documents that attorney has generated as part of his work product. And those are protected documents under the law. So we had the word trial on line 30 incorrectly stated, because there will be other times that someone will be testifying and may use documents from their attorney's file as a part of the review in preparation of testimony. And it doesn't have a right of the court to even direct those documents be delivered to opposing counsel. So Professor Millich correctly states that we should have the word, not at trial, but the word testifying, because that could be with a hearing, it could be with a deposition. Other lawyers in here, if you have any question about it, I think they're scattered throughout the audience, please turn and ask them about this. We're talking about that work product which is privileged and recognized under the law. And at any time, that may be something used by the attorney. I don't think a lawyer, I'm sorry, my colleague feels lawyers do something surreptitiously by trying to slide something for information that, I don't know what she was even talking about being written on a document, but lawyers don't operate on those circumstances. They don't. This is a reasonable bill, a reasonable measure. It was a word that, had it been in the regular bill previously, it would not be a problem. But it has some limitations, and we need to change the word from at trial to testify. I ask for your support. Thank you.
You have a question or two if you care to yield.
I will, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes the Majority Whip, Representative Lindsay, to your right for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Sort of sum it up. Basically, you talk about two different situations.
That's correct.
They're in the same section, but two different situations. First two sentences deal with situations taking place at trial,
where you have a judge reviewing.
And the second situation takes place in proceedings prior to a trial, such as a deposition.
It could. That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You have another question if you care to yield.
I will.
Chair recognizes Chairman Sims to your left for a question.
Gentleman yield.
Yes, sir.
My question is not necessarily with the procedural in Section 2, but there seems to be so many different subject matters in this bill, and none of them seem germane. We're talking HIV, we're talking forestry, and the courts.
Okay.
Can you explain that to me?
It will. The thing you have in number 1 is an issue of evidence, and Section 1 deals with forestry records. We used to have throughout the code different language addressing how documents are authenticated and how they are to be introduced into a record as far as a legal proceeding. We put all that into the evidence code, and we eliminated these various references throughout the code. We overlooked this one. So we changed that by deleting the sections about how those records are to be authenticated and introduced as far as the forestry. The third item is in fact dealing with a change of name that was overlooked as a part of also records and their use of records and disclosure of records. So all we're doing there was changing the name from Department of Community Health to Department of Public Health.
Gentleman, further yield. So
yes,
basically this is a code revision issue?
It's a revision of items addressing evidence code, yes, sir.
Thank you.
You have no further questions.
I again ask for your support for House Bill 3, colleagues. Thank you.
Gentleman has yielded the will. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 3 will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of House Bill 3, the ayes are 129, the nays are 33. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. We have an invite resolution. We have some very distinguished guests visiting with us today. Chair is going to ask the House to remain at order, and the chair recognizes Representative Hitchens for a invite resolution. Representative Hitchens.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's certainly a pleasure for me to be here today, and I wanted to introduce and recognize some very distinguished law enforcement personnel from Georgia. Director Vernon Keenan was supposed to be here. They've been involved in a mutual endeavor, and he had to go speak somewhere, so he had to leave. But the remainder of the people here are not from the state of Georgia. They're from the Republic of Georgia. Many of you remember back in 1991, the Soviet Union imploded, and many of the associated states that were included in the Soviet Union broke free and became independent countries, and the state of the Republic of Georgia did that. We all know that in totalitarian societies there are two things that typically keep people in line. Those are the military and law enforcement. So in order to have a democratic society, which they thirst for very much, we became involved with the military and with the law enforcement community to try and teach the military and the law enforcement community democratic rights, to have the appreciation for independent rights and freedoms. And the GBI, the Georgia National Guard, and several other agencies in Georgia have associated themselves with the Republic of Georgia, primarily, I guess, because we share the same name, but it's been an ongoing enterprise for many years. Today we have several representatives from the Republic of Georgia that I'd like to introduce, and before we get started, we've come to an agreement that I'm just going to use their first names because there is no way that I can pronounce their last names. So as I call your name, please be recognized. David Nukri, Iraqi, and the other members I can pronounce. Rachel Holtzman, who is the U.S. State Department Coordinator, and Colonel Day with the Air National Guard, who, as I said, has also had an ongoing relationship with him. We have several more members in the gallery. I don't know how many of you know Michael Turner, who is the Senior Police Advisor at the U.S. Embassy in Tbilisi, but I've worked with Michael before. He used to be the Public Safety Director for Henry County. Michael. Inspector Sherry Lang with the GBI is representing Mr. Keenan, who's gone, and we have a couple more people from the Republic of Georgia. If you would please stand, and if the House members would stand and recognize them. Could I ask the clerk to read the resolution?
House Resolution 181, Representative Hitchens of 161st and others, be resolved by this House of Representatives. Members of this body recognize the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, its employees, for their selfless donation of time and experience reflected in the assistance provided to the Republic of Georgia's Ministry of Internal Affairs, and commend Director Vernon Keenan of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation and invite him to be recognized by the House of Representatives at date and time to be recognized by this House.
The delegation from the Republic of Georgia will be in the anteroom momentarily if you wish to say hello to them. We're back on the rules calendar. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 105. House Bill 105.
House Bill 105 by Representative Ralston the 7th, a bill to amend an act providing appropriations state fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2012, ending June 30th, 2013, known as the General Appropriations Act. Act number 775, approved May 7th, 2012, Georgia Laws 2012, Volume 1, Appendix, commencing at page 1 of 175. This bill having been before the House Committee on Appropriations, committee recommends the bill pass by way of committee substitute, and this bill is being read today for its third time.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House, the chair now resolves the House into a committee of the whole House for the purpose of considering House Bill 105, the supplemental appropriations bill for fiscal year 2013. And the chair appoints the gentleman from the 146th House District, the majority leader of the House, Representative O'Neill, as chairman to preside over the committee of the whole House. Leader O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Chair now recognizes Chairman England to present House Bill 105.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the House. Good to be with y'all again this morning. We're going to try to run through things fairly quickly for you. Being a Friday, and I know everybody's wanting to get back home to their families and enjoy the weekend. Just want to make a few comments as we open up and get started. Just kind of a 30,000-foot view of things. The amended fiscal year budget for 2013 is based on a revenue estimate that includes about a 3.9% growth over fiscal year 2012, and that's lower than the 5.2% proposed during the last session for the 13 budget. To that end, the revenue estimate adjusts state funds, including lottery, down by about $228 million, and tempers the loss of some of those funds with adjusted payments to the Treasury from some of our authorities of about $22 million, one-time recognition of the National Mortgage Settlement Funds of $99.4 million, and the midterm or mid-year adjustment for education of $172.7 million. A net of all the numbers is a net $26.3 million reduction. Yesterday I spoke to some of you and had the number right, but I had it in the wrong direction, but it is a reduction in the budget by about $26 million. These revenue sources, coupled with the reductions to agencies that total about $178 million, enable the funding for growing needs in the state within a protracted but recovering economy. We agreed with the governor's adds throughout the budget, most notably $245 million for growth in Medicaid, $43 million amended and recognizing increased motor fuels funds, and the use of $27 million in the motor fuel fund reserves for the removal of the Georgia 400 toll plazas, $710,000 for T1 lines to our driver services agencies across the state, a $500,000 addition for the police officers or peace officers indemnification fund, trust fund, due to a larger number of claims than had originally been expected. This year, perhaps even more than in previous years, we have significantly limited our changes to some specific areas. The allotment of the mid-year adjustment for education to the proper K-12 programs, technical realignment of funds based on agency spending and reductions, affectionately known as that trigger word of housekeeping, and of course, prioritizing and adequately funding the programs of the foremost priority of the constituents of this your House. There are no new programs proposed in fiscal year 13 amended budget, and two statewide changes to adjust property liabilities
or property or insurance liabilities, and telecommunications expenses are otherwise referred to as GETs, which appear in most of the departmental budgets. We'll not go through each one of those because that'll take up about twice as much time. They're just those truing up of numbers. Staff, in conjunction with the governor's office, has agreed to on any of the adjustments, to these measures, so we won't discuss each one as I mentioned. There are also 9 transactions where funds of equal amounts are simply shifted to other proper programs within the agency together. These housekeeping measures constitute nearly half of the 114 changes we made in the bill. You'll notice throughout the bill there are 200 plus changes in the governor's version recommendation. Of those, in addition to those, about 114 of those we made. In terms of the sheer number of changes to the governor's document, the next most prevalent series of items you'll see largely are the agency reductions in operating expenses submitted as part of their 3% reduction plan, are based on actual and current spending. These changes, which include a self-imposed 3% reduction in spending for the House of Representatives, represent about a quarter of the adjustments in the bill itself. Most of these adjustments that you will see that we have made are to the legislative and judicial branches, where the executive branch does not have that authority to make those adjustments. Finally, in the House version of the amended budget, there are 29 significant changes that provide additional funds for programs over the amount recommended by the governor's version. These are the items that best exemplify the priorities of the members of the House, and a majority of those are in K-12 education, in keeping with the spirit of having a mid-year adjustment to address educational needs in our schools once student numbers have been confirmed in the fall. The highlight of some of these actions include a softening of reductions to key educational programs, including Ag Ed, career and technical education, communities and schools, Governor's Honors Program, RESAs, and particularly school nutrition, with an add back of over $500,000 there. We also completely eliminated the cuts to the Georgia Youth Science and Technology Centers and to the Superintendent's Leadership Program, and we'll touch on those in just a minute. We additionally added about $10.4 million for eligible private hospitals to participate in the Disproportionate Share, or DISH program, in the Indigent Care Trust Fund. That will allow for a drawdown that will infuse about another $51 million back into hospitals for health care services. The restoration of $659,320 will be noted for the residency development programs for Gwinnett Medical Center and the Southwest Georgia Consortium, and a restoration of $137,775 for graduate medical education residency slots. $488,000 was added back to the Mercer Morehouse operating grants. We restored $511,000 for hypertension outreach services and provided about $3.4 million to meet the existing obligations for current charter system grants. I share this information with you to provide some perspective on how we approached the amended budget this year. We had exceptional input from the agencies and departments, and a very willing spirit of cooperation throughout all of those for getting through a year with some extremely wide swings in revenue. I will also caution you here that while the recent revenue numbers have been very positive and uplifting, please understand that the next 2 or 3 months, as we go into the refund season, those numbers may fall dramatically. So hopefully by the time it's all said and done, we'll even out about right. It is our objective to move the amended budget bill as quickly as possible so that our departments and local boards of education will have more time to manage throughout the final portion of this year, or this fiscal year. The budget does exemplify the spirit and the intent of an amended budget. As a reminder, after the close of this, all of this information will be online on the House Budget and Research website. Now, I would be remiss if at this point I didn't also recognize the chairs of our subcommittees that have done exceptional work, and the members of those subcommittees. Run through those very quickly. Chairman Powell, Chair Lady Houston, Chairman Earhart, Chairman Parrish, Chairman Reinders, Chairman Dixon, Chair Lady Dempsey, and our committee secretary, Amy Carter, have done outstanding and yeoman's work. But behind all of us that stand up here and act and look like we actually know what we're doing, we have a a staff that is second to none, and I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize them at this point. Martha, Christine, Alicia, Margie, Tracy, Jeremy, Sarah, the other Sarah, Buck, and Brian. So without those folks helping us, we would not be able to accomplish what we've accomplished in such a short period of time, and in the accuracy in which we do it. Also noting and needing recognition are those staff members that work with the standing committees throughout the House that a lot of times help us understand many of the bills passed here and what the committee's intent was as they came through the process. So my hat is off to all of those. If you will, go ahead, Willie. If you will, we're going to run through the tracking document very quickly. Put your running shoes on because we're going to go through it pretty fast. And I'm going to just draw your attention to the things that we have changed within the document, and we'll not spend time talking about the governor's recommendations that we did not touch or adjust. Section 2, dealing with the House of Representatives, I'd mentioned the 3% reduction as we've requested from other agencies. You'll see that there. Section 3, the joint offices of the General Assembly. You'll see some minor reductions there that equate to about a 3% reduction as well. The Department of Audits and Accounts, which is a legislative branch agency or works for you in the General Assembly. You'll also notice cuts of just around 3% there as well. Section 5, the Court of Appeals. You'll note some changes there. As the budget was submitted from the judiciary, they had, of course, put in some of their priorities. As Chairman Powell and his committee went through and looked and through the hearings, they realized many of these things are things that we need to address or look at and talk about in the 14 budget. So basically what we did, or what his subcommittee did, was go back in and take those additions back out for the time being. Section 6, the Judicial Council, you'll see a slight deduction for the e-filing project director, and we're just deferring it to fiscal year 14. Moving on to Section 8, prosecuting attorneys. There were some funds added for travel for the DAs, and then a small adjustment for SHBP that was not needed, so those have been also diverted to fiscal year 14. Section 9, Superior Courts. Many of you have come to us, and Chairman Powell and many of us on the committee, and expressed your concern about eliminating those additional funds for the senior judges. And after looking and walking through this and understanding as we're implementing the alternative court system, many of these senior judges are filling in for the Superior Court judges on their bench as they're getting these things up and going. So we decided not to take that $749,000 cut and replace that money into their budget. Section 11, State Office of Accounting. Replaced the contract there of $90,000 with the Carl Vinson Institute. That contract was already committed. That money was basically already spent, so we went back in and replaced those funds. Section 12, Department of Administrative Services. A slight deeper reduction as it relates on line 1291 to the tax courts, and that's actually truing up to their projected expenditures through the remainder of the year. Section 13, Department of Ag, line 1346, deals with the H-1B and H-2A program that this House initiated last year to help farmers with navigate kind of through the guest worker programs. That program was just as what we call a pilot program, and just as it's supposed to do. If it doesn't work, that's something we eliminate. The program was successful to a small extent, but not used as widely as we thought it was, so we're taking the remainder of the savings there. Moving to Section 16, Department of Community Affairs. A slight deeper reduction on the REBA grant money. It does not affect any projects that are currently underway. It's just a cut from the reserves there. And then dealing on 1612-1, the Georgia Rural Water Association, they will use some other funds to fill that or fulfill that contract as well. Section 17, Department of Community Health. 1741, dealing with the disproportionate share of hospitals. Again, that's what I mentioned in my opening comments about the hospitals that otherwise cannot qualify, that we put some money in to allow them to draw down some additional federal money. and so we have gone back and funded that. Under 17.511, we had put in a initiative last year dealing with single-dose vials on certain treatments. That money, the language was vetoed and a line item vetoed, so we've captured that savings. And then on 17.512, that also rolls up with changes on 17.611 and 17.78, and just moving those funds to the appropriate categories as I mentioned earlier. And a portion of that was also used for the backfill on dish as well. Continuing in section 17, when we get to 17.10.1, that is dealing with the Gwinnett Medical Center and the Southwest Georgia Consortium and restoring the funding there for the most part, and basically it fills it back up to the point that it'll take for them to finish out the year. 17.10.2 is just lowering the 3% reduction there to a 1.5% reduction. 17.10.3, there were only 7 residents that accepted the slots where we had funded 9, so we've cut that back, and that's at the Houston Medical Center program there. 17.11.1 and 17.12.1 are the Mercer and Morehouse Schools of Medicines, the grants that we send over there. There was a proposed 3% cut. We lessened that to a 1.5% cut. One thing worth noting there, both of those programs are initiatives of the House in prior years, so they are something that this House does feel strongly about, so we felt like that those pieces need to be restored to the point we could. Section 17, dealing with the Department of Corrections. Again, kind of a realignment of expenditures and where they need to be. The department did some great work in coming to Chairman Powell with some reductions that they could handle, and that allowed us to make some moves here and in other places. So I want to commend them for their help, and you'll see that reduction on 18.6.2. Moving now on to section 22. You'll see an adjustment at 20.0.2. Again, that was a housekeeping fix there on common changes. Moving down to 22.5.1, Chair Lady Houston and her committee looked at that and felt like that one of the things we didn't need to do was pull back from marketing of our state. So they've reduced that reduction from $345,000 to 0. And then there were some excess funds that were available there on 22.5.5 dealing with the Georgia Research Alliance, so they had, took a little more savings there. Section 23, Department of Education. You'll see several of the softening of the cuts that we'd mentioned earlier, or that I'd mentioned earlier. One comes in 23.1.1 dealing with Ag Ed. That's reducing that from a 3% to 1.5% cut. 23.2.3 deals with the Superintendent's Leadership Program, and that is done in a partnership with Georgia Power and the Georgia School Superintendents Association. And what that does is actually help aspiring people that are looking to become a superintendent at some point in the future to help them better understand the bigger picture of things. And also, if there are new superintendents that have maybe missed some of the classes, it allows them to come back in. I was under just a little bit of a wrong assumption the other day when I said it was where all the superintendents could get together once a year for stuff to be rolled out. So I wanted to correct that from the full committee meeting the other day. Communities and schools at 23.4.1, we reduced the cut there. Georgia Youth Science and Technology Centers on 23.9.1, we replaced that cut. We are working, Chairman Dixon and I and others are working to maybe better align that program, possibly making a program shift there for the future. 23.10.1, I know I've heard from several, and I know many of you have mentioned to me that you've gotten emails from back home about the Governor's Honors Program. We know and understand that that is a program unlike any that we do in the state, and one of the models for the nation as it applies to some of our most exceptional and brightest students. They have a foundation that we allowed them to kick off last year. They're just now getting into their fundraising mode, so we've softened that cut somewhat there. Section 23 still dealing with Department of Education under non-QBE grants. 23.12.1 and 12.2 deal with taking a 3% reduction down to a 1% reduction. Nutrition, again, we softened that cut. That directly affects students and the parents' pocketbooks, so we have lessened that reduction from a 7.1% reduction to a 4.9% reduction. And to be noted too there, we're still above the floor on the federal match, so we're not endangering that at this point. 2317-1 and 2317-3. 17.3 rolls up into 17.1. We just made an adjustment there and made some other minor tweaks and everything with better information. 23.7.2 deals with a misclassification of some students that were attending Devereaux Academy for Residential Treatment Center. A school system had miscategorized those students. They were not properly reimbursed, so we've gone in and fixed that. It was something that's owed to them. It's not, Devereaux is not a state agency. They're a contractor with the state. It was a mistake on our level, so it's something we need to fix. 23.18.1, dealing with recess. Again, lowering that cut from a 3% to 1%, and then technology and career education, lowering that cut and freeing up the cut where it can be spread from a 3 to a 1.5% cut. Section 25, Forestry Commission. The first change on 25.3.1 deals with restoring about half of the part-time positions. There are about 64 part-time positions. We've restored about half the money for half of those. So then also on 25.3.3 gives them the ability to have a little more flight time for looking out and scouting fires. Just an interesting statistic, we've lost about 750 structures so far this year in the state of Georgia, and of course a big part of what their job is to get ahead of forest fires to keep from losing structures during a forest fire. Moving on to Section 27, Human Services. A couple of changes there on 27.9.5. There was an ad for a office rent for Liberty County. My understanding is that was not needed, so there's a $50,000 cut there. And then a slight ad of $2 million dealing with telecommunications we were asked to do after the governor's budget had rolled out. It was just something that we needed to take care of, and that again rolls back to GETS. Dealing with the Voc Rehab Agency, if you'll look at line 27.2, we put in about $1 million there to help that agency as it's getting up and running, as it was separated last year, of course, from the Department of Labor. They are still learning what they're needing to do. That $1 million will go toward the hospitals down there, and then it also frees up money in Voc Rehab that does draw down a federal match. So that $1 million there turns into about $5 million for Voc Rehab. Section 27, Office of the Insurance Commissioner, a reduction of $206,000, and that's going to be managed in personal services through, basically it's a 3% reduction like we've taken on other things, but it'll be managed through attrition of investigators. Section 29, GBI, there was an adjustment on 29.0.1 that was an agency or an adjusted liability that was brought to us from the agency. 29.1.1, and that was dealing with a security contract out there. The contract's already in place. The agency's going to be looking about changing the security at their headquarters and allowing us then to go in and take a savings potentially in the 14 budget. The problem is they do take in a lot of nighttime deliveries of evidence, so someone has to be there to securely check that in. So we've adjusted a little bit there. Also, 29.1.2 is a slight reduction for personal services, just to reflect some administrative efficiencies. 29.4.1, dealing with telecommunications and eliminating landlines for employees that have state-issued cell phones. By the time that's put in place, there'll basically be 1 month worth of savings at the end of the fiscal year, so we've softened that cut to reflect that. And then the accountability court reduction at 29.5.2, that's based on what the projected actuals will be to finish out the year, since those courts did not start up wide open as of July 1 this fiscal year. Now moving on to Section 37, dealing with public health. 37.2.1, I heard from many of you that you had deep concerns about that reduction in the hypertension money. We've restored that $511,000 cut there. That primarily affects about 5 counties: Whitfield, Lawrence, Richmond, Dougherty, and Clark. So that's again, as I mentioned, priority of the House. 3773, a recognizing of some contract savings there. And so that again, slightly additional cut, and it was reflected from savings that were recognized. If you'll look then at 3714.1, it's a reduction in some contractual services. We deepened the cut just a little bit more, dealing with the trauma system. An audit came back pointing out some deficiencies there, so we do have some additional work we've got to do going through this session and through the coming summer. Section 38, Department of Public Safety. Under post on 3811.1, that reduction we're saying no to because those funds or other funds are not available. And on 3811.2, we took a slight 3% reduction there in personal services. 3812.3, dealing with the Public Safety Training Center. A former Representative Bearden that was here earlier said that they've got to have bullets to shoot, so that $100,000 cut, $159,000 cut would have eliminated their practice ammunition, so we softened that, added $100,000 back for that. As I said the other day, if we expect them to shoot bullets, we want to make sure they know how to shoot those bullets. Section 40, under the Regents, just a couple of minor changes there. Under 40.4.1, the Enterprise Innovation Institute, we took a 3% cut there that they had submitted. Only about 1.5% of that was taken originally, so we went in and took the full 3%. Under teaching at 40.17.1, we softened the cut by $500,000 to Georgia Gwinnett College. As they're continuing to grow, they still have some challenges, but we're working through that with them as well and appreciate their help and input. Section 41, Department of Revenue. Under fraud detection and compliance, we softened the ad there a little bit, and they're rolling out that program. That program has been very successful, but we just felt like that ad was that much of an ad was not necessary at this point in time. Moving on now to the next change. Section 47, Department of Transportation. Seeing $125,000 add back by the House there. Many of you know that deals with airport aid and the improvements that can be done at local airports. That match is a 5% state, 5% local, and a 90% federal match. So basically that $125,000 will pull down an additional $2.5 million in federal funds. So we just felt like that was something we didn't need to necessarily just walk away from. Section 48, dealing with the Department of Veteran Services. 48.5.1, that is, by the time that system or that program gets up and running, it will be into the fourth quarter before they're fully operational. It's something that we had put into place earlier, and it's just now getting up and going. So what we've done is just put in the money for the last quarter of this year. Last and final, Section 50, dealing with general obligation bonds. Basically what we did there was just shifting those to the appropriate categories. And then on 50.2.4, there was some savings when that building was finished of about $1.2 million. And we're just reflecting the debt service savings at that point. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the walkthrough. I'll be glad to answer a few questions if there are any.
You want a chance to get a couple of deep breaths where you don't faint up there?
That and a drink of water.
Great job, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate that. Will you yield for some questions?
Yes, sir. I'll be glad to.
Chair recognizes Representative Buckner of the 137th for the purpose of asking a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am, certainly.
I have a question about the archives. I wanted to make sure there was funding to finish out this year before the move to the Board of Regents, and I may have missed it, but I was looking for that.
An elimination would have been noted, so the elimination is not there. It will, the only thing that show up here are any changes or deductions. So without it showing up here means that it's still in the base. Okay, so it will continue operating on the reduced schedule that the Secretary had announced, And then when the regents pick it up, they've got some very innovative and progressive ideas that they're looking at doing there, and some things in conjunction with Clayton State College as well through an intern program.
So it will stay open until July 1 at the current
Yes, ma'am.
way. Okay, thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Dukes of the 154th District for the purpose of asking a question.
Would the chairman yield?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, you mentioned something that got by me. I think it was in the public health section 37. Okay. I think it had something to do with the programmatic grants to counties.
Yes, sir.
Could you kind of go into that and explain how we ended up getting to that point?
That number is an actual reduction or savings. However, there are other agencies out there doing very similar services. These were some kind of supplemental funds. The services that are being provided will not necessarily be dropped because other agencies are doing it. One of the programs is done through the school systems, so they're conducting some of that sort of stuff. Another piece of that was when we, about 2 or 3 years ago, said that we wanted all babies tested at birth for any deficiencies or any problems. That takes care of a piece of one of the other problems too.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I see no further questions. So while you're on the way back to your seat, if you yield the well, I want to add the chair's thanks to your staff and your subcommittee chairs for an outstanding job on a very difficult process. Chair recognizes Chairman England for the purpose of a due pass motion of House Bill 105 by committee substitute.
Mr. Chairman, I move that House Bill 105 do pass from this committee of the whole by committee substitute.
Chair now recognizes Chairman Tom Dixon for a second to the motion.
I rise to offer a second to the chairman's motion.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House, we have a motion do pass, House Bill 105 by committee substitute, and seconded. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. The ayes clearly have it. Chair recognizes Mr. England.
Mr. Chairman, as chair of the Committee of the Whole House, you are instructed to report the action of the Committee of the Whole to the House, Committee of the Whole House to the House.
You want to get Jan up here?
Chair recognizes the majority leader.
Mr. Speaker, the Committee of the Whole House has had under consideration House Bill 105 and has instructed me as its chairman to report the same back to the House with a recommendation that House Bill 105 do pass by committee substitute.
The report of the chairman of the Committee of the Whole House is received by the chair. The Committee of the Whole House has had under consideration House Bill 105 and has reported the same back to this House with a recommendation that House Bill 105 do pass by committee substitute. The Committee of the Whole House is dissolved. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered on House Bill 105? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 105 will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 105. The ayes are 145, the nays are 18. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to a group of privilege resolutions.
These first four resolutions or invitation resolutions are being read for the first time today to be referred to the Committee on Rules. A resolution from Representative Ralston of the 7th recognizing and commending the Ella Wildlife Rehabilitation Sanctuary on the life and memory of Craig Seilick and inviting the Seilick family to be recognized by the House of Representatives. Resolution from Representative Waits recognizing and commending the Atlanta Falcons football team and inviting them to be recognized by the House. Resolution from Representative Tanner of the 9th congratulating Bradley Weaver winning the American Star and Agribusiness Award, inviting him to be recognized by the House. Resolution from Representative Randall, 142nd, recognizing February 26, 2013, Macon Day at State Capitol, inviting citizens, public officials, Macon and Bibb County to be recognized by the House. Those four resolutions are invitation resolutions being read for the first time today and referred to the Committee on Rules. The following resolutions are privilege resolutions being read for the first time today for adoption. A resolution by Representative Lindsay, 54th, recognizing February the 7th, 2013 is in the Commercial Sexual Exploitation of Children Day at the Capitol. Resolution representing Benton, 31st, commending Ms. Hope Meredith, Jefferson High School's 2013 star teacher. Resolution representing Benton, 31st, commending Matthew Drimmer, Jefferson High School's 2013 star student. Resolution representing Benton, 31st, recognizing commending Ms. Becky Garner, Jefferson City School System Teacher of the Year. Resolution representing Scott, 76, recognizing commending Mrs. Johnny Martin, Rex Mill Middle School Teacher of the Year. Resolution representing Scott, 76, recognizing commending Pamela Howard, Roberta T. Smith, Elementary School Teacher of the Year. Resolution by Representative Scott, 76, recognizing commending Miriam Cheney, Anderson Elementary School Teacher of the Year. Resolution by Representative Donahue, the 30th, on the life and memory of Mr. Harold P. Heron. Resolution by Representative Chiokas, recognizing commending Claudia Mueller on her retirement. A resolution by Representative Chiokas, commending Nick Lowry and others, and recognizing February 21st, 2013 legislative fly-in day at the Capitol. Resolution by Representative Waits, 60th, on the life and memory of Joshua Watson. Resolution by Representative Scott, 76, recognizing commending Ms. Kinney, East Clayton Elementary School Teacher of the Year. Resolution by Representative Scott, 76, recognizing commending Ms. Wells, Mara High School Teacher of the Year. Resolution by Representative Ralston, 7th, on the life and memory of Herbert W. Robinson. A resolution by Representative Ralston, 7th, on the life and memory of Charles Finley. Resolution by Representative Dollar, the 45th, recognizing February 11th, 2013, Hemophilia Day at the Georgia State Capitol. Resolution by Representative Hughley, the 136th, recognizing February the 18th, 2013, Alpha Kappa Alpha Day at the State Capitol. Resolution by Representative Ralston, the 7th, on the life and memory of Edgar George David Jr. Other purposes, a resolution by Representative Ralston, the 7th, on the life and memory of Melinda Williams. A resolution by Representative Powell, 32nd, recognizing Wednesday, February 20th, 2013, Emergency Medical Services Recognition Day at the State Capitol, commending emergency medical service professionals. Resolution by Representative Oliver, 82nd, recognizing commending Mr. Thomas J. Lawley, MD, on his retirement. And we have a group of resolutions introduced by Chairman Carl Rogers of the Higher Education Committee All of these resolutions commend the University System of Georgia outstanding scholars from various institutions of higher learning within the University System of Georgia. All these resolutions are by Representative Rogers. They are identical except for the name of the outstanding scholar and the unit of the University System of Georgia. These resolutions are privileged resolutions read for the first time today as a group, commending System of Georgia's outstanding scholars of different academic institutions with the University System of Georgia and for other purposes through the privilege resolutions.
Is there objection to the adoption of the privilege resolutions? Chair hears none. The resolutions are adopted. Can I ask the House to come to order, please? Too often, I think we don't show appreciation to people who really do a lot of hard work, and so once or twice a session, I think it's appropriate that we honor what I believe to be the finest budget office of any chamber anywhere in the country, and no one works harder. So please help me show appreciation to the House Budget Office. Believe it or not, I think you all are wanting to go home. We have no announcements. If you do have an announcement and haven't signed up, you're going to have about 15 seconds to do that because the chair's ready to go home. Chair will make an announcement, though, that we have a couple of birthdays coming up over the weekend. Chairman Carl Rogers is celebrating his 35th birthday tomorrow, I think, and so he's finally maturing. We're glad for that. Happy birthday, Mr. Chairman. And Representative Kevin Tanner is going to have a birthday on Sunday. Representative Tanner, happy birthday. All right, we still have page photographs will be taken at the rostrum immediately upon adjournment. If you have a page here today, then come on down to the rostrum now. We have no announcements. The chair recognizes the majority leader of the House for a motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move this House now adjourned.
Hang on just a minute, Mr. Leader. We had one other motion. If I can have you come back to that. Chair recognizes the chair of the MARTOC, Chairman Jacobs, for a motion.
Thank you.
You haven't talked to Robbie, so we'll have to do that one Monday.
All
Need
right.
to come talk to the clerk. We'll take that motion up Monday.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair now recognizes the majority leader for a motion.
I forgot what I was going to say.
You want me to help you? ADJOURN. It's Friday.
I move that it's Friday till Monday at 1 p.m.
On the motion.
February the 11th, 2013.
On the motion of the majority leader that this House be adjourned until Monday, February the 11th at 1 p.m. All those in favor of the motion will say aye. All those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. This House will be adjourned until Monday at 1 p.m.